hands down and his chin served on a platter for that right hand right there. And look at Jake Paul's face.
Things are spiraling again around Jake Paul, and this time it carries more weight than the usual social media chaos.
216.6. Yeah, absolutely, Kyle! You listen to me, brother! When the ring bells, I'm coming in there and I'm coming on his ass!
New accusations are flying online, suggesting that some of Jake's biggest bouts may have been prearranged, including the blockbuster Netflix clash with Anthony Joshua.
This is the first fight where everything was slowed down for me and I was able to really handle the moment really well.
There's no proof backing any of this, but that hasn't slowed the rumors, with certain corners of the internet even hinting at supposed legal issues involving Jake and his brother. Promoters and officials have pushed back firmly, reminding everyone that fight fixing isn't a meme. It's a crime with real consequences. Still, the real damage isn't happening in courtrooms, it's happening in the court of public opinion. Trust around Jake's boxing journey feels thinner than ever, especially when you factor in past controversies like that widely reported FBI raid from years back. Fair or not, the discussion has shifted from, is Jake actually getting better? To, can this even be taken seriously anymore? And that's a dangerous shift for someone whose rise depends almost entirely on credibility and attention. This moment isn't about one rumor or one fight. It's about whether this cloud finally slows the momentum or completely unravels one of boxing's strangest modern stories. For years now, a long list of boxing insiders, ex-fighters, and even promoters have been skeptical of Jake Paul well before these latest allegations surfaced. This isn't some overnight backlash, it's a feeling that's been simmering for a long time. Critics point to what they see as suspicious patterns, opponents chosen at just the right stage of decline, fights unfolding at an oddly controlled tempo, knockdowns that arrive suspiciously late, and contracts rumored to include restrictions that feel more protective than competitive. To them, it hasn't resembled boxing's usual unpredictability. It's felt curated, managed, almost staged in its neatness. And that's where the issue lies. Boxing fans accept chaos, damage, and randomness. They don't accept polish.
Jake Paul's California mansion has been raided by the FBI, multiple news organizations report. You can see in this aerial footage agents in uniform outside his home in Calabasas.
So when enough respected voices start raising similar concerns independently, the tone changes. It stops sounding like bitterness and starts sounding like genuine doubt.
Our lawyers are actively going after a number of people. One who claims to be a lawyer himself online. I don't remember the name or the handle, but it was something that had like 200,000 likes. And basically this post said there was an agreement for AJ not to knock out Jake.
And once doubt settles in, wins on paper stop meaning much, because fans begin questioning whether the rise was built on resilience or on carefully controlled conditions. This is also where the conversation quietly exits conspiracy territory and steps into something more reasonable. Because honestly, listening back to this breakdown, I find myself agreeing more than dismissing it. After all the noise about this fight being scripted, this take actually feels grounded in reality. I agree with the main point. It didn't look fixed, it looked uncomfortable, dangerous, and awkward in a way only real fights tend to be. Joshua wasn't rushing because he couldn't afford to. One mistake, and he would have become a global punchline overnight. On the other side, Jake didn't fight like a trained boxer. He fought like someone trying to survive. Circling endlessly, clinching, dropping levels, killing momentum, basically turning the ring into controlled chaos. Was it attractive? Not at all. Was it effective at extending the fight? Absolutely. That's why the pacing felt strange, not because of a script, but because AJ was dealing with disorder instead of clean exchanges. What surprised even me was Jake's toughness. You can mock influencer boxing all day, but eating heavyweight shots late and still standing says something about durability. That said, let's not rewrite history. This wasn't skill, it was survival mixed with panic control. Joshua stayed patient, let exhaustion do the work, and once the opening remained there, the ending came exactly as it should have. The real takeaway isn't corruption or mercy, it's that pressure makes fights ugly, and fans often mistake fast knockouts for the only sign of dominance. And then the tone shifts from breakdown to blunt boxing truth. because once Duke McKenzie speaks, the politeness disappears. Listening to him, it's clear this is how a real fighter interprets a survival exercise masquerading as a contest. Duke isn't puzzled by why it lasted 6 rounds, he explains it plainly. You can't knock someone out early if they refuse to engage. Jake Paul entered with one objective: avoid clean contact at all costs. The Roadrunner analogy hits because it fits. This wasn't rhythm or craft, it was movement driven by fear and cardio management. When Duke calls the performance pathetic, it's not personal, it's about expectations. You promoted competitiveness, talked confidence, and then spent most of the fight avoiding exchanges. From his viewpoint, that's not clever tactics, that's emergency mode. The oversized ring, the constant movement, the clinching, it all explains the timing of the stoppage, but none of it hides the massive gap in class. When Duke says AJ was never in danger, that's not exaggeration. That's a former champion accurately reading risk. What really sticks is how Duke redirects the spotlight back onto Anthony Joshua, because this fight was never meant to be about Jake's chances. It was about AJ restoring belief in himself. Duke frames it perfectly. This wasn't a statement, it was a confidence rebuild. Knock out Inanu, knock out Jake Paul, check the boxes, remind yourself you can still finish. You can almost hear AJ internally thinking, yeah, I still have this. And that matters for the heavyweight picture. Duke also shuts down the idea that AJ held back with brutal simplicity. You don't fracture someone's jaw in multiple places if you're pulling punches. Conversation over. I also respect his fairness when he says 6 rounds made sense. Not reckless, not dragged out, just controlled pressure against someone committed to evasion. And when Duke talks about levels, it's not disrespect toward influencer boxing, it's about safety and reality. Influencers fighting influencers is entertainment. Professionals fighting professionals is a livelihood with real consequences. Because if those lanes keep crossing, eventually someone pays a much heavier price. Joshua did what he needed to do. Jake learned the reality of elite opposition. And Duke reminded everyone that boxing isn't about hype, it's about consequences. That's where everything ultimately lands for me. Remove the rumors, the outrage clips, the slowed down conspiracies, and what remains is a fight that revealed exactly what it needed to. Jake Paul stepped into the deepest water of his boxing experiment and lasted longer than many expected. But lasting isn't the same as belonging. Anthony Joshua didn't chase a highlight. He handled the job, rebuilt confidence, and reminded people that heavyweight boxing isn't something you can shortcut indefinitely. The doubt surrounding Jake wasn't created by one punch or one rumor. It was the result of years of controlled moments finally colliding with reality. Some fans will scream script. Others will say AJ should have finished earlier, but the truth usually sits in the uncomfortable middle. Real fights are ugly, patience beats panic, and levels always reveal themselves eventually. That's the lesson here. Not conspiracy, not excuses, just boxing doing what it always does when hype meets experience. Now I want your take. Is the skepticism around Jake Paul justified at this stage, or is he being measured by standards no one else would face? Did AJ approach this the right way, or should a heavyweight of his stature never allow it to reach 6 rounds? Let's hear it in the comments and really break this down. And yeah, make sure you support the channel and stay locked in with Fight Headquarters. Catch you in the next one.